winning the lottery is generally not a good idea for people, you know, because it's just too much. It's too much for them. It flips their lives upside down. So, and they tend at best to return to their original baseline level of emotion. But yes, something remarkably good, I mean it's a lot better than something remarkably bad obviously, but it still can have that destabilizing effect. So it depends on what elements of your life it disrupts. Like in some sense you have a map that you're operating within in the world, and that map is predicated on assumptions of different sorts, some shallow, some profound. When the profound assumptions are devastated, huge chunks of the map are invalidated, and that can happen sometimes when dramatically positive things happen as well. So, but the fundamental rule is the more of your axiomatic presuppositions are disrupted, the harder it is on you. You know, like maybe you quit your job because you won the lottery. It's like, hey, I'm off to the beach, I'm going to drink margaritas. It's like, that'll work for about 4 days. You know, you do that for 3 months, you're a beach alcoholic. It's like, that's a real improvement. You know, so it's not that easy. And often too, if you take people out of their routine, you know, they just flounder. Their circadian rhythms go, they don't eat properly, they don't know what the hell to do, you know. So this is often why people have such a hard time when they retire. I'm going to retire and relax. It's like, if I relaxed for 2 weeks I would die, you know. I need something to do, I need to be engaged in something. So the movie opens with the opening credits, which are carved wooden signs, which is like a hint, you know, because Geppetto's a carver. And it starts with this song, which was actually quite a popular song, and it's a bit of a, what would you call it? I don't think the poetry is particularly profound, but it was a song that people liked and people still listen to, and it sets the tone for the movie, which is what music does. One of the things that's really interesting about movies, that's really mysterious, is that, you know, if you go to a movie there's almost always a soundtrack, right? If you go to a movie and there isn't a soundtrack, it kind of feels empty, it feels like there's something missing. And you know, it's as if the music, you know, when you go to a movie there's lots of things you can't see, the characters are only partial, and you don't know anything about their background, so it's like a low resolution thing. And what seems to happen with the music is that it provides the emotional background, the complex context, let's say. It's like a substitute for the context, and it guides you in your perceptions of the movie. It gives you hints about what's going to happen, and the funny thing about that is that we just don't have any problem with that. You know, it's like, yeah, of course a movie has a soundtrack, and of course when there's a dramatic scene the music gets dramatic, but that doesn't happen in real life, so you'd wonder why we would accept it in a movie. And I think it's partly because we're willing to accept the amplification of reality that constitutes a movie, and in fact we find that compelling, and music is one of the things that does that amplification, the dramatization, and that's acceptable to us. This song I find quite interesting, so I'm going to take it apart quite a bit. In some sense I feel foolish doing it, because it's, you know, it's a childish song in some ways, but that's okay. When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Well, okay, there's some mysteries there. People wish upon stars, that's like a little ritual, right? Why do they do that? Well, and what exactly is a star? That's another question, because there are stars that shine in the heavens, and there are people who are stars. And so, why are people stars? Well, they're usually famous people, right? They're people who attract a lot of attention, and maybe they're people who have a lot of talent, that's another possibility. Maybe they're models. I don't mean, you know, clothing models, although sometimes they are, but they're models for emulation. That's what being a star means. That's why People magazine is full of stars. It's like they're like they're like heroes brought to earth, and of course you know nothing about them, all you know is their public persona, and of course they're usually very attractive, and so that allows you to project upon them all the things that would go along with ideal humanity. And so they're stars. But still, why stars? Well, stars beckon in the darkness, right? And they're otherworldly. That's the thing that's cool. They're not of this earth. And I mean that technically, because obviously they're not of this earth, but I also mean it phenomenologically. I mean it as an element of human experience. So most of you are urban, and so you've not had the experience of, perhaps, of the full night sky, you know, and that's really too bad, because the full night sky is one of those experiences that actually induces awe naturally, you know. And no wonder, you look up there and there's just stars everywhere, right? You're looking at the edge of the galaxy. That's the Milky Way, right? It's the edge of the galaxy. It's like, wow, there's the edge of the galaxy. And there's just so many of them. And it's such an expanse. You're looking into infinity. You're looking into the unknown. You're looking beyond yourself, that's for sure. And, you know, that produces a sense of awe in people, like looking at the Grand Canyon or something like that. And you're looking at something that transcends yourself, but that feeling of awe, that seems to be something that's a natural part of our response. You know, you might feel awe when you meet someone that you regard as particularly admirable as well, because you feel that there's something transcendent about them. So here's an interesting thing to think about. There are people you admire, and there are people that you don't admire. And that's a clue, right? That's a clue as to your value system. And it might be not really something you can even put your finger on. It's like you find this person captivating, you find this person admirable. And it's as if there's something inside of you that's looking for what's admirable, you know, assuming that you are. And that person who's admirable has a faculty, some faculty, that you would like to have for yourself. And so they're a model for emulation. And that's part of how people develop, you know, like little kids often develop little hero crushes on older kids, you know, not that much older, but sort of the person that's sort of just within their grasp, and then they follow them around and imitate them, and you know, so they're imitating what they find admirable. Well, the fact that you find something admirable is a hint as to the structure of your unconscious value system. And so you could think, even as an exercise, you could think, well, what qualities of a human being do I find admirable? You have to ask yourself that, in a sense. You can't really think about it. There is a difference between asking yourself a question and thinking about it. You know, because it's more like when you're asking yourself a question, it's contemplative. It's like, well, what do I find admirable? It's a question. You don't know. And if you're fortunate, and this happens quite regularly, an answer will float up from wherever the hell answers float up, and you know, oh yeah, that's one, and you can write that down, and you get some idea of what your ideal is, you know, and you have one likely, and what your counter ideal is.